Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm Fergus Timmins. I'm the training manager with the Alzheimer Society of Ireland. I want to say thank you very much for the Care Alliance for inviting me to present today. You'll notice that my colleagues Dr. Martha Doyle and Dr. Marita O'Brien can't make it today, so I'll be presenting the qualitative research that they did as part of the presentation. So in my role as training manager with the Alzheimer Society, we provide training for our own staff, but also for family carers, because family carers obviously are impacted and touched by dementia very clearly, and we want to support them in their caring journey. So what I'm going to do in the presentation is, let me just see which click I press. There we go. So the content, really, I'm going to look at our education and training programs, and it's interesting to hear Robert say about the importance of dialogue and sharing experiences. Because that's what we try and do on the course, and I'll explain that in the context of the presentation. So we offer two training courses. It's the same training course essentially, but we offer it in a face-to-face context, which is the Insights into Dementia course. And more recently, through our home-based care, home-based education project, we offer that course fully online. And the research that we carried out as part of the home-based care, home-based education program was to try and ascertain whether the impact on family carers of attending the face-to-face course would be the same in the online course. So that's what we're going to look at in the presentation. That's the research question, essentially. I'm going to outline the methodology and what we did in terms of trying to answer that question. And then I'm going to look at some of the findings and results. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions from the floor. So that's the structure of the presentation. So this slide here just gives a little bit of background on what became the Insights into Dementia course. I joined the Alzheimer Society in late 2013, and we had been delivering family care training for a number of years before that. We had a grant from Pubble, which was in the early 2000s, and we found that course very useful, and feedback was very positive for the course. And we train, I suppose, 350 people annually on those courses, about 20 or 25 courses around the country. So it's really just a tip in the iceberg, but in terms of resources, that's what we can afford to do in terms of the resources that we have. So about 350 people trained per year. And the course is delivered by our own staff who have worked in dementia for a long number of years and who have been trained up as trainers and tutors. So that's how we deliver the course. And the Insights course is six sessions, and each session is about 2.5 hours. And you can see there on the right-hand side the cover page of our leaflet to publicise the course. So we call the course Insights into Dementia, Informing and Empowering Family Carers. So that's really important because even from the presentation so far today, what I think is really clear and what's really important is that family carers get a chance to tell their story and to share their experiences with each other. So there's a lot of peer-to-peer support within groups. And that works very well. Just a little bit more about the course in terms of the course structure and content. The content is there in the middle slide in terms of the week-by-week breakdown. So we look at what is dementia. We look at the nature of changing relationships, which is important. We look at communication skills. And we look at how to respond to changes in behaviour, which is really an issue in dementia for some people. The course is quite practical too, because we look at nutrition and eating well and engaging in different activities, which is important for the caregiver and for the person that they're caring for. And then we look at personal care, and we look at safety and making sure that the caring environment is as safe as possible. Then, really importantly, we look at looking after yourself as a carer. That's really important, because unless the carer is healthy, fit and well, then the care that they provide may suffer. And then we come to that one, accessing information, which we've talked about already today. That's really important. So we provide a lot of information around what's available for family carers and around dementia. And that acts as support for people on the course. So, and then the final week is kind of a wrap-up and certificate presentation. So you see there that basically the structure of the course then is theoretical input from our tutors, followed by participative group discussions. So we really try to keep the input from ourselves quite short and give people time and space to discuss how that affects them in their caring situation. And I just thought I'd just some photographs of the course that we ran up in Artane Coolock last November. And you can see that we have in the top right hand corner there, our tutor there leading a session. And then in the bottom left, the large group break up into smaller groups to discuss specific questions and then to feed back to the group. So people get a chance to meet each other in small groups, talk about the issues, and then feed back to the larger group. So we found through the years in evaluation forums that was very well received, and people valued that sense of peer support and the information people were getting on the course. But in the times that we live in, we were getting a lot of demand and requests for online course. And we were getting requests from parts of the country where we couldn't deliver the course physically. So we became interested then in online course delivery. And Liam told us back in 2014 that there was an interesting seminar going on over in Brussels around the possibility of community organisations getting funding to run training courses. So we applied to Erasmus in March 2015, and we got funding for what became the home-based care, home-based education course. So that is a pan-European project that we have coordinated at the Alzheimer Society with two partners, one in Norway, one in Belgium. And we've all brought together our expertise to develop the online course. The Norwegian partners are Flexible Education Norway, and the Belgian partners are ICDEAN, which is a further education training college specialising in training of nurses and community workers. So the aim of that project was to create an online course. And what we did from the start was we used the Insights material as the basis for the course content. But we wanted to make sure that the online course, and this was the challenge, could have the same sense of participation and camaraderie and peer support as the face-to-face course. And that's what we said in the project application, that we would try to measure that as part of the course to see what the impact was. And that's what we're going to talk about in the rest of the presentation. Just by way, before I do that, that's the kind of the homepage of the online course. So it's pretty much the same content, but in a slightly different structure. So it's a 6-week course with an extra week at the start for induction and orientation. So people get to know the Moodle site, they get to meet each other in online communities, and they do some exercises around getting their profile and writing in forums. So they just get to know the site, and then you go into the content week by week. So it's a fully online course. It's available via Moodle, which is a learning management system. It's facilitated by a trained tutor. So there's a community of learners on the course, but there's a tutor there on hand to answer questions and to set questions and to interact with the group. Again, it aims to provide family carers with an opportunity to share their experiences. And we use video presentations. We use the forums a lot, if you're familiar with online learning. We use discussion forums where people can reply to questions and talk to each other. And we also have a weekly video meeting where people can get to see each other as well. So the question for us then was, could our online course be as effective as our face-to-face provision? And what we did two elements to the research. So there was the quantitative, which involved a questionnaire that was administered to people who did both the online and face-to-face course before and after they took the course. So the idea is that we try and get a picture of the journey that people have gone on in terms of their self-assessed awareness of certain topics from before the course started to after the course finished. And you see there the number of people who completed questionnaires and who returned them to us. So here's, I'm going to have to try and interpret this slide for you. So this is the first question that we asked. Please rate your understanding of dementia on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is very low and 5 is very high. So the face-to-face respondents are in black there, and the online course respondents are in red. So you can see the level of understanding at level 1 and 2, which is quite low, has reduced significantly during the course, by 33% for the face-to-face and by 45% for the online. And subsequently, those people who rated their understanding at 4 or 5 or very high increased by 63% for the face-to-face and 74% for the online. So they're quite significant changes. And we were pleased to see that. We knew it, really, because we cover a lot of body dementia on the course, but this verifies it very clearly. Before, we just asked people at the end of the course to evaluate the course, and you just get a snapshot in time. We wanted to, before and after, if you like, for comparative purposes. So this is interesting because we had a session this morning on information. So we asked people, I know where to find relevant information to help me in my caring role, and whether they agreed or disagreed with that statement before the course started and after the course finished. Because one of the sessions on the course is around accessing information. So you see there that there was a reduction in people who disagreed with that statement or totally disagreed with that statement in both the face-to-face and the online. And there was a consequent increase in the number of people who agreed or totally agreed with that statement from 34% and 41%. So they got a lot from that. They got a lot of signposts, they got a lot of information that was relevant to their caring situation. Third one and final one I want to look at is we asked, to what extent do you agree with the statement, I feel I can influence my loved one's behaviour? So again, we asked a scale of totally disagree to totally agree. And for the face-to-face course, there was a reduction in the people who totally disagreed with that, and an increase in the people who agreed and totally agreed with that. So this kind of indicates that just that people felt more, I suppose, able and confident to communicate with their loved ones and to influence their behaviour once they've completed the course. And the same for the online. Again, the same trend in the online. A reduction in the number who disagreed with that and an increase in the number who agreed with that. So that was interesting, but we thought, to dig a bit deeper, it would be very important to add on some qualitative research. So to actually conduct focus groups and interviews. So we asked some external experts, Dr. Martha Doyle and Dr. Marita O'Brien, to conduct some interviews and focus groups with the participants. To kind of add flesh, I suppose, and add more meat to what we had seen in the quantitative analysis, and to give a bit more depth. So 80 people were sent a questionnaire and 17 responded, an invitation to participate in the research. 9 from the face-to-face course and 8 from the online course. So we had 3 focus groups and we had 4 one-to-one interviews. Thank you. So what I'm going to talk about next is some results of that qualitative research. Here, just briefly, some motivations for completing the course. Why did you want to do the course? To meet other people in a similar situation and share experiential and practical knowledge. To know how to respond better to a relative or spouse with dementia. To demystify and better understand the condition. To affirm that they were caring appropriately for their relative or spouse. To support a parent who is acting as a full-time carer and share learning with family members. To help a parent with dementia to understand the condition and to better understand the condition and what might lie ahead. So again, the future, this idea of the future, what might lie ahead is important for people. So after the interviews were transcribed and analysed by the researchers, 3 areas of benefit emerged. And I'm going to talk about these for a couple of minutes. The first was around improved knowledge of communication skills. The second was increased knowledge on how to assist in daily activities. And the third was an increase in assuredness and acceptance. So just go over those now in a little bit more detail. So the communication skills were important. People learn not to project their own feelings and frustration and tension. So caring can be frustrating and difficult, but people learned to communicate those feelings in a positive way. And they attributed communication difficulties to the illness rather than the person. So rather than getting frustrated with your loved one who has dementia, they understood that that was part of the condition. And that gave some comfort. They became familiar with the triggers that may result in increased agitation. So we looked at responsive behaviours on the course. And we looked at strategies to control as best as possible responsive behaviours and to look for triggers. And there was a greater sense of tolerance and improved relationships. So there's a couple of quotes there that are quite long. I'm not going to read through all of these, but even the top one there you can see, I think my communication improved. I was more conscious of not getting impatient because now I understood what was happening. I understood why this was happening and why my dad would do a certain thing. And then at the bottom there, it makes you more conscious, makes you conscious of what you're going to say and what you're going to do. Because the person you're dealing with cannot, so you have to be tolerant. So real changes there in terms of communication skills. In terms of knowledge on how to assist in daily activities, these were kind of practical tips that the group shared with each other and that we kind of kick-started, I guess, with the session. So an enhanced feeling of self-efficacy and control, increased knowledge of the strategies they would and could use to bring about an improvement in everyday activities. So getting very practical stuff like getting rid of patterned carpets, avoiding mixing food and medication, the importance of drinking water, cut down on the variety of clothes choices when you're helping your loved one to get dressed. So very practical guides on how to improve daily activities. And this was a big one, the whole idea of assuredness and acceptance. So definitely an increased sense of assuredness, acceptance of what the condition was and what their role was. So the quote here, I think I was less frustrated afterwards, I just felt more in control and more hopeful. And I was definitely more confident about it. So that's Rita, a parent who's on the face-to-face course. And kind of better able to control one's own responses and acceptance of the situation. So the same kind of thing. I understand that this is the illness, and if something doesn't work, you just have to leave it. So that was Jim, who did the face-to-face course. Well, what I got out of the course was that you need to do whatever you need for yourself to actually help you cope. And then the bottom one there, which is the title of the presentation, funny enough, it gave me a sense of hope. So, real positive impact for people on the course. And just to kind of underline that, an enhanced sense of reassurance that they're doing the right thing. I think it's made me a little less stressed about it because one of the worries you have all the time is you don't know what you're doing. You're isolated and you've nothing to measure yourself against. So when they did the course and people shared stories and we gave them some inputs and tips and tricks and help, people felt much more reassured by that. And one of the ways that I think that's really important that happens is through discourse. And it's through telling stories and sharing experiences. That is facilitated by our tutors, our excellent tutors, in an empathetic and supportive way. That's so important. So I think that helps with people getting through the caring process as best they can. And what's happened is that it's motivated people to take action. So this was another theme that came out in the research. So participation in the course spurred a number of respondents to seek further information. And so what it did is it gave me a kickstart. It was very motivating and not daunting. Dad is still dad, it's just a different phase of his life. So people are kind of philosophical about their situation. And if training and teaching and education can motivate people to take action, you're talking about transformative learning, which is really it's really important, and we're delighted to hear comments like that. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope I've given you a flavour of the research that we've done and the impact that it's had on our participants, and I'd gladly take questions at the end of the session.